it just won't be the regularly scheduled intellectual insanity that I'm known for. Check out the website, jackalexanderexperiment.com, but you can also find me, I live stream my show on Fascist Book until I get zucked. It's also on Twitch. I keep Zuck-proofed storage of the videos of my show at rumble.com if anyone wants to do a search there. But you'll also see my social media on Parler, Megabook, Gab, Pro America Only, as well as Twitter and LinkedIn. So the majority of them are pro-freedom, pro-America social media sites.
Excellent. And Lonnie Poindexter, what are you known for? You're a D.C. denizen, recently moved out to California, always spell it with a K, and you've been in charge of a whole host of organizations, if I'm not mistaken. Lonnie, are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I hit the mute button.
Oh, that's okay.
Yes. I'm there, and then they run me out of there. You know how that is.
Yes.
Oh, we're so glad to have you a part of what we're doing. And then, wait a minute. You're way too opinionated for us here. But, being amongst your brethren, I feel right at home. But, I spent many years in Washington, D.C., with a national Christian political radio show. The two things they say you should never talk about singularly, let alone together, and that's politics and religion. And we did that from our nation's capital. I had a lot of fun doing that. Met some wonderful, wonderful people. In fact, through that association, that's how I became privy to what you folks at SHR Media do, and have been a fan ever since. More recently, I did some television down in Southwest Texas. Love the state of Texas. And then more recently, have joined an organization that is really doing some, in my opinion, some wonderful things to get the truth out and speak the truth. And as the old church folk would say, shame the devil. And that's with an organization called Every BLM, or Every Black Lives Matters, which has commandeered the nomenclature of the liberal Black Lives Matter movement, and by putting every on the front and speaking to pretty much every one of the planks in their platform, but ours from a position of truth. So if you say Black Lives Matter, wouldn't you say every black life? Oh, yeah, most certainly. We certainly say every black life, but would you say Black Lives Matter in the womb? And that's when they go,
breaks.
Because they're pro-abortionists. And I go, you're so pro-life. About black folk with a darker paint job, or why are you aligned with an organization and an agenda that is singularly did what the KKK, Jim Crow, and slavery couldn't do during its illustrious time of prominence in this nation, and that's putting over 20 million folks with a darker paint job never making out of their mom's tummy. So I'm a big pro-life guy, but also pro-Constitution, which I really think speaks to everything in its entirety about what we stand for. And, man, I'm just happy to be amongst the brethren here at SHR Media, and the fact that the drinks are not watered down. This guy here, BZ, speaks the truth, and he does it unapologetically, and he has a lot of fun doing it and has me cracking up laughing all the time.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind. We're going to get tonight. I quantify this as the positive show. And I decided to call this the positive show tonight because if you look, there's a lot of good, positive stuff happening out there in the world, except that you mostly don't hear it because the American media maggots don't want you to. So the thrust of this show tonight is going to focus first on the many positive things that are occurring in our nation. Normal people, you, me, everybody, we're tired of the leftist crap that they're pushing back, and we are pushing back on them, and we are resisting, and we are beginning to win. Don't give up. That's the point of this show. Don't give up, certainly not now. Then what we'll do is we'll also compare and contrast that with the many other insane things that continue in our lives, forced on us normal people, I should say, by leftists, so that we are all well informed. That's my job, to make sure that you hear things that other people don't hear. And realize that now more than ever, we can't afford to drop our guards for any reason whatsoever, because I think a reckoning is coming, and its name is 2022. But it's no time for complacency. Now, before we get going, we had an individual pass away, Bob Dole. And Bob Dole, if anybody remembers, was made fun of or mimicked by another gentleman who has passed on, Norm Macdonald. So let's have a little tribute, shall we? Oh, come on. Oh, wait. Okay, again, if I had a producer, my producer would be producing things through the proper buttons. Let's try this again.
You're really doing an impression of Dan Aykroyd when he does an impression of me. You know it, and I know it, and the American people know it.
Come on now, Senator. It's a great impression. Listen to this. Come November 5th, a lot of people are going to be surprised by Bob Dole, because Bob Dole is going to win this election.
Doesn't sound a thing like me. First of all, I don't run around saying Bob Dole does this and Bob Dole does that. That's not something Bob Dole does.
And that's why we loved Saturday night. Also, I had to play this. This is a minute of buttery goodness. There was an Arizona conservative gubernatorial candidate, and she's named Kari Lake. And this is perfectly illustrative of where we're going and why I say there's a lot of positive stuff that's going on out there right now. Let's take a listen.
Bob Dole does this.
Oh, wait, Bob Dole, be quiet. Again, if I had a producer, we'd be doing that, and we'd be going over here. Now, Kari Lake, take it away.
And from day one, you guys were just going after me. It's like, what did I ever do to piss you off?
This is the media.
It's crazy.
She's talking to.
It's crazy. Now, if I were on the left or a leftist, you guys would have been all over and how excited. But the minute somebody who's doing great in the polls as a conservative, and you guys are worried about that, starts to do well, you start attacking. And it's wrong. It's wrong.
How about just a comment on why you came out here today?
I came out here because I care about what's happening in our schools. I'm a mom. I have school-age kids, and I want great opportunities for them. I want great. I'm not running for governor because I want to be a politician. I don't want it for the fame. I'm not trying to get rich. You don't get rich in politics if it's done well, if it's done honestly. I'm doing this because I care about this state. I've lived here for a long time.
Arizona, she's talking about.
And it's disgusting what the media does. The media has disappointed Arizonans, and they've disappointed this country, and it's wrong.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And she knocks it out of the park. Speaking of knocking it out of the park, something came today in the form of a verdict. And because I can get away with this on Spreaker, now I would never be able to get away with this on YouTube, and I would never, ever be able to get away with this on Facebook. But I can get away with it on Spreaker because basically it's audio only. Well, gosh, BZ, what kind of audio do you have to celebrate something that occurred today?
Afraid of being attacked. Happens to the best of us. Don't ever forget what happened to that French actor. You know what I'm talking about? Juicy Smouillet. He's a very famous French actor. Y'all never heard of Juicy Smouillet?
This is Dave Chappelle.
Juicy
Love
Smouillet
this dude.
Is an actor from France. And he became famous on a show called Empire. One night, he was in Chicago late at night and was the victim.
He can't say it.
He was the victim of a racist and homophobic attack. You see, Juicy Smollett is gay and he is black, not just French. Oh, it was a crazy story. Apparently, when he was walking down the street late at night, 2 white men came out of the shadows with MAGA hats on and beat him up. Tied a rope around his neck, called him all kinds of niggas, and put some bleach on him and ran off into the night. This shit was like international news. And everybody was furious, especially in Hollywood. It's all over everybody's Twitter feed and Instagram page. Justice for Juicy and all this shit. The whole country was up in arms. He was talking about it all the time on the news. And for some reason, African Americans, we were like oddly quiet. We were so quiet about this shit that the gay community started accusing African American community of being homophobic for not supporting him. What they didn't understand is that we were supporting him with our silence. Because we understood that this nigga was clearly lying.
I love this.
None of these details added up at all. He said he's walking down the street in Chicago and white dudes come up to him and say, "Hey man, aren't you that faggot nigger from Empire?" A fuck? Does that sound like how white people talk? I know white people. They don't talk like that. Are you that faggot nigga from Empire? They would never say that. It sounds like something that I would say. If you're racist and homophobic, you're not even gonna know who this nigga is. You can't watch Empire. Black people never feel sorry for the police, but this time we even felt sorry for the police. Can you imagine if you was a police veteran taking this kid's police report? Okay, Mr. Smollett, please tell me what happened. All right, 2 a.m. You left the house at 2 a.m. It's minus 16 degrees. All right. You were walking. All right. And where were you going? Subway. Sandwiches? That's when the men approached you? Did you see them? Do you have any? Okay, what they have on? MAGA hats. MAGA hats on in Chicago. Excuse me one second, Mr. Smollett. Frank, come here for a second. Find out where Kanye West was last night.
That's why I love again. That's why I love Dave Chappelle. So what happened today is that Juicy Smollett was found guilty of staging race baiting, a race baiting hate attack, basically to boost his career. So nearly 3 years, that was almost 3 years after he claimed 2 Trump-loving bigots, white guys, beat him up, tied a noose around his neck, and doused him in bleach in a misbegotten bid to raise his public profile. Which is, okay, here are the counts. He was found guilty of the first 5 counts and not guilty of count 6. So count 1 says it accuses him of telling responding Chicago police officer Mohammed Beg at about 2:45 a.m., some 45 minutes after the purported attack, that he was the victim of a hate crime. He said 2 attackers put a rope around his neck. Count 2 refers to Smollett telling the same officer he was a victim of a battery, describing attackers' beatings and pouring bleach on him. Counts 3 and 4 are when Smollett made the same claims, but to a different officer, Kimberly Murray, later that morning at just before 6 a.m. Now, count 5 accuses Smollett of again telling Murray at about 7:15 p.m. that he was the victim of a battery. Count 6, not guilty, refers to Smollett reporting on, I'm going to get that name right or wrong, I don't know, of Smollett reporting on February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2019, to Detective Robert Graves that he'd been the victim of an aggravated battery. And it looks like his exposure to this might be, I don't know, maybe 3 years or so. Lonnie Poindexter, any thoughts on, as Dave Chappelle says, juicy?
First of all, I'm trying to get myself together because I've been on the floor over here laughing.
I know. Chappelle is so good.
The first time I saw that, I literally screamed because that's what everybody was thinking. And this fool is lying. He got what he wanted, which was exposure.
Yep.
International exposure, but not the way he thought he was going to get it. So it's really interesting. I've had numerous conversations with folks all across the country about this, and we've laughed about it, screamed about it. But it does speak to if you drink, how do I put this? If you drink liberalism, it's like it'll make you drunk, but drunk with not being able to see things. You get drunk on the power that comes with it, that you think you put pretty much anything by common sense people. And then what it does is what it did to him. I'm just so happy that because, Chicago politics being what they are, that they did convict him. But they certainly really didn't have a choice in this. This was so obviously a contrived story that anyone pretty much that could ascertain that it was not the truth. Here's my question to you, BZ, and also Jack, is do you think he's going to do any time?
That's a really good question. Like I say, I understand his exposure is 3 years. It's been 3 years, I believe, since the incident. Mm-hmm. They haven't gotten, obviously, yet to sentencing, so you bring up an excellent point. What will be the sentence? My initial response is A, well, it's Chicago. B, well, it's Mayor Lightfoot. And C, somebody somewhere has to be thinking, okay, they found him guilty, except he's done such hard time already. Isn't it time to either go put him time served or simply stick him on some kind of intermediate wobbler probation in between a felony and a misdemeanor, make him serve that probation for, I don't know, a year and a half, do some community service, and then call it good. That would not shock me at all. Jack Alexander?
Look, I hope he does time because I want to start up a letter campaign and print up these little postcards with a picture of Jussie Smollett saying, in life you're going to get attacked. Just don't beat yourself up about it. And just have all of my listeners send them to the prison mailbox so that, you can be reminded every day of what a moron he was. But the reality is, should he do time? Hell yes. Will he do time? Probably not, because so many people in Hollywood have committed such heinous crimes, and very few of them actually get to serve any sort of time. I mean, Alec Baldwin should already have been indicted on on manslaughter charges for what happened on the set of Rust. It's taken years for Ghislaine Maxwell to finally start seeing or facing a court, and Harvey Weinstein, might get through. Bill Cosby had an easy run of it for a little while. I mean, so so many of these leftist supporting fruit jobs get away with so much because they have such powerful allies in the Democrat Party that they rub shoulders with. And yeah, he's black. It happened in Chicago. Lori Lightfoot, defund the police. Yeah, he won't do any time. And even if he did do time, it'll be. I don't think it'll be anything other than a minimum security prison, and he will then probably have to be kept out of general population anyway because he is such a pussy.
There's no way that you could put him in Gen Pop. You could not put him in Gen Pop. You'd have to put him in PC, protective custody, if for no other reason than he is a celebrity, and then add his being a homosexual, et cetera, plus the people that now that he was found guilty might not look kindly upon him when they themselves may have been valid victims of hate crimes. Speaking of hate crimes, I got about 2 more minutes before I got to take the bottom of the hour break. I want to point this out because this is a wonderful repository. It's a database of hate crime hoaxes in the United States. And if you ever want a reference point for hate crimes, go to fakehatecrimes.org, fakehatecrimes.org, a great place to go for information. Gosh, I got a minute left. Do I have enough time to be able to pull this off? I think I will. I'm going to have to go ahead and do it. I think I can rush through this in about a minute. So let's do it. Let's do this right now.
The Bloviating Zeppelins HeyJackass.com Chicago Death Toll Update. Courtesy of Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
And that's from HeyJackass.com. HeyJackass.com, illustrating Chicago values. So, HeyJackass.com, December to date in Chicago, shot and killed 18, shot and wounded 66, total shot 84, total homicides 18. Week in progress, December 5th to December the 11th, shot and killed 5, shot and wounded 34, total shot 39, total homicides 5. Year to date, the big numbers, shot and killed 758, shot and wounded 3,569, total shot 4,327 for Chicago. Total homicides to date, 806. Now, the 2021 Chicago shot clock indicates that a person is shot every 1 minute and 54 seconds, and that a person is murdered every 10 minutes and 11 seconds in the lovely city of Chicago. Hey, Lori Lightfoot, you've got such a great city to be proud of.
The Bloviating Zeppelins HeyJackass.com Chicago Death Toll Update. Courtesy of Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
And tonight, I've got Lonnie Poindexter and Jack Alexander. We'll be right back after this. So don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Wave with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Want to make an immediate difference in the life of a critically ill child? You have the ability to do that right now. Make a donation to Dream Makers for Life, the organization that restores dreams to seriously ill children and their families. You can sponsor a dream pack for a child. which contains a clear PVC backpack, a dry erase board adventure coloring book, a journal, and dry erase markers to inspire a critically ill child to envision a future adventure and hope. Want to become a dream maker for life yourself? Go to dreamforlife.org. That's dreamforlife.org. Help a child. Help a family. There is always hope.
Unleashed Jeremy Hansen, the most explosive pro-American podcast on the planet. Pro-MAGA, pro-Trump, pro-conservative. Come join the resistance. Fight for what really matters in America. 5 p.m. Central on UJHLive.com, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or MAGAbook.com. Come join the resistance and fight for America. Unleashed Jeremy Hansen.
Do you value yourself, your family, your friends? Want to know more about how to survive, thrive, and stay alive in these dynamic times? Listen to Around the Campfire with Kate, Thursday nights and Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central, only on PSN TV. That's Around the Campfire with Kate. News that nobody in the MSM wants to report. Remember, train hard, train smart to survive, thrive, and stay alive.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. Welcome back, folks. I'm BZ. You're in the saloon. My guests tonight are the fabulous Lonnie Poindexter, one each, and the time-traveling Jack Alexander, also from Australia. Down below, the Coriolis effect is in effect down in the southern hemisphere. This is the positive show tonight because there are many, many great things that are occurring now due to the fact that people are resisting leftist edicts, and they're finally pushing back. And we're getting some results. And what we're discovering now is that when we band together, when we refuse to comply with what I consider to be naked insanity, when we push back, things change. So the emphasis, the point of the show tonight is don't give up. All is far from lost. Sometimes it may feel like it, but don't get down. This is just the beginning of pushback. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I might have to start the show all over again because nobody really heard it. Nobody caught it on Spreaker. I think a reckoning is coming, and its name is 2022. But it really and truly is no time for complacency. Now, because I said that the first portion of this show is going to be about good, positive things, what I should have done is I should have played this.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
And nothing says happy stories like a conservative shredding a leftist.
The dominant narrative in America is white people are evil, white people suck, we should be ashamed of ourselves. And
I don't think we should be ashamed of ourselves. I think that we should take responsibility for the system that we've created.
Best system in the world?
Oh, we do not have the best system in the world.
Who has a better system?
There are many European countries that are much better off
than
us.
Oh, you mean like the European countries with a higher density of whites, like Northern Europe?
That's one way to phrase it, I guess.
You don't mean Turkey.
No.
You don't mean Eastern Europe with the communists. So the only time you can come up with a system that's better than America, it's a country that's more white than America. I don't understand.
I don't know what to say.
Dominant narrative.
I'm sorry. I love that. Nothing like having a leftist hoisted on the petard of their own creation, Lonnie and Jack. Was that not glorious?
Oh, that was brilliant.
I thought it was brilliant.
That was glorious.
It was absolutely fabulous. So in keeping with happy stories, here's one. It's a two-part story because the second part just came in today. This is from NBC. Senate passes resolution to repeal Biden vaccine mandate with the help of 2 Democrats. And, of course, the measure faces really long odds in the Democrat-controlled House. but it's an indicator to me of things to come. So what happened, it was supported, this mandate for vaccines. The repeal was supported by every Republican and 2 moderate Democrats, John Tester of Montana and Joe Manchin of West Virginia. I've got an audio cut of John Tester from Montana coming back in just a little bit. The part B of that is that Biden today has said that when that comes to his desk, if that comes to his desk, he's just going to veto it. Lonnie, any thoughts?
I'm sorry, BZ. I'm a little preoccupied with something else that you were talking there. And forgive me, let me say this, and then we can come back to your post. I'm looking at and I've been laughing during the break, so forgive me, but I'm looking at a post, some of our brethren out there who have a sense of humor that's out of this world, and someone sent me a meme that says, Jesse Smollett, the first American to scam Nigerians. And it's got
Wait. Where's my... Because that deserves one.
I'm sorry. It's all a little preoccupied. And it's got the picture of the 2 Nigerian brothers who helping with the farce. And I spit my tea out as I was watching it, laughing. So forgive me, brother, for not paying attention.
It's true. It's true.
He scammed 2 Nigerians.
God. It's too bad they weren't princes, Nigerian princes. That would have been absolutely beautiful. Jack Alexander?
Yeah. I mean, look, the memes over Jesse Smollett just keep coming. And that leftist getting ripped to shreds, I mean, that was just some of the best audio I've heard. I actually haven't seen that one. I'm glad you actually played it. But something else that's going to get ripped to shreds is the Democratic House in the next election. When you look at it, the GOP only needs 5 seats in the lower house to gain control, yet 18 Democrats, like rats from a sinking ship, have decided, stuff this, we are not running for re-election. So, I mean, the good news just keeps on coming on all fronts.
It very much does, and I think a good portion of that is because they happen to see the writing on the wall, and they've decided that instead of hanging around and taking our licks, perhaps this is in fact a time that we should take advantage of things and just sort of disappear right now. You mentioned earlier, and I remember. I hope I remembered before the show. One of the 2 of you mentioned the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and I have a very interesting little bit of information about that. There was a Twitter feed called the Maxwell Trial Tracker that was eliminated wholesale by Twitter. And we'll talk about that in just a moment, because one of the reasons that it was eliminated is it got way too close. And there was a very interesting tidbit that I discovered about the trial, Ghislaine Maxwell, and about Jeffrey Epstein and the FBI. Jack, you mentioned Democrats leaving the House, retiring, as a matter of fact. A guy named Doyle from Pennsylvania, Price, North Carolina, Bustos, Illinois, Johnson, Texas, Kirkpatrick, Arizona, Vela from Texas, Yarmouth from Kentucky, Jackie Spear from California, Butterfield, and DeFazio, Oregon, Keno from Wisconsin, seeking another office, Bass from California, Christ from Florida, Demings, Florida, Souza from New York, Brown, Maryland, and 3 others. They're fleeing, basically, the sinking ship. And it's very true. I think they see the writing that's on the wall.
point, BZ. The other thing that I'm noticing is when in Washington for a brief period of time, I headed up a political PAC that was there, and so it kind of gave me from that side of the spectrum to see about how candidates come to the forefront and decide they want to run and throw their hats in the ring. And what I'm noticing here in the beautiful state of California with a K, that people are rising up, folks who share our particular worldview. I was on a conference call earlier this week, and I can't mention this gentleman by name, but he is the mayor of a city in Southern California, and he's running for Congress, and he is a staunch conservative. And I was excited to learn of this. I just happened to be on the call, and he let that particular information out. So there's something taking place even in this state, in the sorry shape that it's in, where folks have said they've had enough. And so you would think that those folks who lean way left on the other side, if they have any intellectual faculties at all, they have to be reading the tea leaves and see that there's going to be some major pushback based upon with this individual who sits in the Oval Office, and we all know that he didn't get there factually, but in the cooking of the ballots, which is a whole other show, which I know you've covered in the past. But there's something taking place, so I am optimistic by nature anyway, but it has really stepped up because, as I'm sure you know, BZ, living in this particular state, you can get pretty pessimistic.
Oh gosh, that's my middle name. Well, I have two middle names. One is pessimistic, the other one is sarcasm. So I have one of those double English sort of names. It's interesting. Now, Neil Cavuto is not my favorite Fox anchor. And then Tester from Montana, as I indicated before, was telling people why it is that he crossed the aisle and went with the Republicans, saying that I don't think the vax mandate is appropriate. And so he's speaking on Neil Cavuto's show and says what logical thinking people think is the obvious, but it ain't so obvious for Democrats and leftists.
A Democrat from the beautiful state of Montana. He has been leading a charge in concert right now with, Senator Joe Manchin in opposing President Biden's vaccine mandate push right now for the private sector. Senator, very good to have you. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Neil. Thank you.
Your concern with the private sector push comes amid, courts now sort of questioning how far the president can go, demanding it of even federal contractors. Where do you and how do you distinguish?
Well, first of all, I mean, look, I've been vaccinated. My family's been vaccinated. My entire staff has been vaccinated. I believe that people need to go out and get vaccinated, just as the previous two folks have talked about. But in the end, I've heard a lot from my businesses in the state of Montana. And they've told me that, it's put them in a heck of a bind. And so I think they should have some relief. On the other side, there are other, like the healthcare folks that need to get vaccinated. I'm not opposed to that at all. In fact, I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's common sense, Neil.
So,
Okay, let me stop you right there. Because here's the deal. This is what pushback and refusal to comply and resistance gets. It got John Tester, who's the head of the Appropriations Committee, it got him actually listening to his constituents and responding thusly. That's, again, indicative of what this show is about tonight. When you push back, when you resist, things can change. Stop being sheep. Jack Alexander, any thoughts?
Look, I think it's just one of a lot of things. Yes, people are getting a lot of pushback, but for as long as I've been doing my show, I've seen a connection with a lot of things. When you start looking into these people, they all seem to hang around with the same people. And given what's going on, and I thought it was interesting that Alec Baldwin and his wife nuked their social media accounts this week. coincidentally, about the same time as Alec Baldwin's name turned up in documentary evidence in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Turns out that his details were in Epstein's little black book. That on top of the Russ thing, and his hobnobbing it with Clinton, the Clinton crime family, the Bidens, and right across the board. I mean, Democrat popularity in the polls is dropping to its knees faster than Kamala Harris at a job interview. It's just dropping that quickly. And I also think that there are a lot of, from what I'm seeing from people that are throwing their hats into the ring for next year, is a lot of their platforms is about open investigations into people that are in Congress, so that the crimes that they commit while they're in office, they're going to have to answer for those. So I wonder how many of these people are jumping ship to try and escape the sort of scrutiny that they would be put under if they'd stayed in place. Now, I'm certainly hoping that whether they quit or not, the scrutiny gets placed on them, because unless we hold our elected officials responsible for the crimes they commit while in office, we will continue to get shitty candidates. We will continue to get corrupt candidates like Clinton and Harris and all of these others. You know, Governor Moonbeam there in the Union of Soviet Socialist California. Until we clean up the swamp. And I mean, I think there's a lot of political DDT that's going to be spread around after the midterm elections. And I'm hoping and praying that it just doesn't stop at the House, that it stretches both ways, down to state and county politics and all the way up to the White House, so that if you're an elected official, any impropriety is going to get found out, and you are going to be prosecuted for it. If that means getting impeached if you're the president, good.
You know, since 2016, and most importantly since 2019, 20, and this year, 21, I have had the coincidence beaten out of me regularly on a yearly and a monthly and a weekly and a daily basis. I have been completely disabused of the word coincidence anymore. And a lot of this stuff coming together, getting rolled up in one ball, I don't think it reeks of coincidence. It just can't anymore. I just discovered, for example, Brian Williams decided that he's going to anchor his final broadcast of the 11th hour on MSNBC. I'm going to go into the Cuomos. The Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Twitter completely removing Tracker, the Maxwell trial tracker, which didn't provide opinions, simply existed as a repository for stories about the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Removed completely by its roots. I don't believe in coinky-dink. No mo. That doesn't happen with me. Because any logical thinking person is finally beginning to understand, as the covers and the tinfoil is being pulled away from their eyes and the top of their head, this stuff doesn't exist in a vacuum anymore. And we know that it is all interlinked. And I think, I used to think, well, I do for this, leftists aren't going to stop pushing, so that side of the argument is going to continue. There's no two ways about that. But on the other hand,
they're not going to stop pushing.
Oh no,
until
no.
they start having to actually really fight for it. One of the comments I made on my show last year is when a lot of these leftists really get pushed and the pushback comes, none of them are prepared to metaphorically die on the hill of the manure that they're shoveling. And the sooner the spotlight is placed on them and the pressure is pushed on them, they bail like rats from a sinking ship. And all of these Democrats that are jumping ship, they've all voted for stuff that has been questionable with its constitutionality. They've supported a lot of the illegal COVID mandate stuffs that's coming out. They've been some of the biggest voices when it comes to those of us who have tried to expose or not just expose, but just ask questions about COVID, its origins, its treatment, why are certain treatments that have been declared safe for decades being made illegal now for the treatment of this. Yet new technologies where even the creator of the technology says this should never be used on humans, was never designed to be used in humans. Yet we keep bending over backwards and governments are forcing us, especially those of us that are in Australia. I mean, the BS that's going on here in Australia with this.
Okay,
and all
Jack,
the government.
Jack, can you hold the thought about what's going on in Australia? Because I am going to get to a story about that.
Okay. Either way, they're using all of this, and now that the public, the sleeping majority, when you've got mum and pop voters, when you got granny going out there and protesting, and what's going on in the school districts, I think a lot of these Democrats have decided the bullshit we've been shoveling. I don't want to die metaphorically on this hill, so I'm going to get out of this. I've made my millions. I can retire. I can work as a consultant for a government department, make a shit ton more money, and just get out of the spotlight.
Sure, lobbyist, here I come. Exactly.
Yep.
Now,
that's exactly what takes place.
I wanted to emphasize the Ghislaine Maxwell trial because the Maxwell trial tracker is gone. That's been completely gutted by Twitter. Then they started a backup, Maxwell Trial Tracker 2. Within seconds, that got yanked. Now, if you want to find out what's going on, something that nobody can yank, I would recommend as an alternative a place called Patriot One, PatriotOne, patriot1.substack.com. patriot1.substack.com, because now they're covering, and here's where a little bit of revelatory information comes out. Sexual abuse in Palm Beach, Day 7 of the Maxwell trial, an addendum to yesterday's coverage. Special Agent Kelly McGuire verified multiple exhibits of evidence found in Epstein's safe. Well, this, what I'm going to tell you right now, is what got the Maxwell trial tracker pulled immediately. Now process this information. Think long and hard about this paragraph. When the FBI seized those hard drives and CDs storing images, that material appeared with corresponding FBI evidence tags already present on them, suggesting that the FBI and law enforcement officials had already been in possession of, reviewed, and returned Epstein's hard drives. Process that. Comments or thoughts, Lonnie and Jack?
Well, with the book, there was a ton of names in there: world leaders, politicians, celebrities, and so on. But out of all business leaders, but out of all of the names in the book, one stands out: Donald John Trump. He is the only person in that book that actually saw what was going on and notified law enforcement. And this is one thing that even Fox and a lot of these other agencies aren't covering in this trial. Trump is the reason that Jeffrey Epstein was previously convicted for this sort of stuff. It's why he was banned from holding any events at any Trump properties, because of what he was trying to, the parties that he was having at Mar-a-Lago.
And that's exactly it. That's exactly it. People are not saying, the American media maggots are not saying that he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. Nobody's reporting that.
No.
No. I covered this again on yesterday's show, and I had a ton of people say, "Oh, Donald Trump's name's in that book," but yeah. But he's the reason that Epstein got convicted, and given how lightly Epstein's sentence was, there was some backroom jiggery-pokery going on with that for him to get off so lightly, given the mountains of evidence, and that's where I think all of these previous FBI tags came from his previous trial. And it's just amazing that because Epstein was such a major contributor to Democrats and a big friend of Slick Willie Clinton, that he has been able to skate on some of the most heinous crimes. And Epstein's the prime reason why I have said for the nearly 40-plus years that I've been in broadcasting, but certainly in the almost 20 years I've been doing conservative talk broadcasting, that I have said that child sexual offenders should get the death penalty even for a first offense. Because the statistics that I've seen in researching this over the years is that a pedophile will have molested a minimum of 5 different children on average before they attract the attention of law enforcement. So are they really a first-time offender? When they go to trial? And, it's proven that they will always reoffend. There is no cure for it. So why should these animals be given 3 hots and a cot and basic cable in prison for the rest of their lives at the taxpayer dime? That they should be put down as the mangy dogs that they are. And you can guarantee one thing. If you put them down, not one of them is going to reoffend. You put down enough of them, and it starts to become a deterrent.
It's the top of the hour. It's 9 o'clock on the Pacific. It's midnight on the East Coast. It's 1749.7, drawer 3, sub Groot cluster 2 in Bolivian time. I never really understood Bolivian time. We're going to go and have a break here. Hold that thought, Jack Alexander and Lonnie Poindexter. When we come back, I want to hit Wesley Allen Dodd, because you started with a point, and people are probably thinking, Wesley Allen Dodd, who the hell is that? Well, I'll tell you who that is, and because I also fought in child abuse and got any number of child abuse suspects convicted of multiple years. In any event, I'm BZ, that's Lonnie Poindexter, that's also Jack Alexander. Tonight we're doing the positive show because there's so much positive stuff going on out there. And we'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website, www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Come
Listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, for the best in late-night conservatarian wireless talk radio at SHRmedia.com. Raised as a free-range child with dirt and freedom, BZ is broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room at SHRmedia.com. Now, with 18% more umbrage and 20% more bulbosity than previous shows, and with delicious Liberty additives. Remember, BZ realizes that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. I am back, and I'm with Lonnie Poindexter and also with Jack Alexander from the Jack Alexander Experiment. You're in the Saloon, and this is the positive show tonight because there are also many, many great things that are occurring now due to the fact that people are resisting leftist edicts, and they're finally pushing back, and we're getting results. So what we're discovering now is that when we band together, when we refuse to comply with insanity, when we push back, things change. And I want to emphasize, again, all is far from lost. We are not lost. This is just the beginning. 2022, I believe, is going to be a very revelatory year. But because this is the Saloon, I want to also tell everybody this, too.
Folks, this is BZ's final hour. Step up. Last call for alcohol.
So if you're thinking about it, perhaps now is the best time to go ahead and grab something out of the refrigerator as we're talking to Lonnie Poindexter and also to Jack Alexander. I work child abuse. We were talking about child abuse issues and Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, etc. There was a gentleman that I had occasion to listen to being interviewed named Wesley Allen Dodd. He was responsible for the killing of 3 young boys. 2 were brothers up in Washington, the state of Washington. He was a guy that was the guy that was hanged. He was the first American hanging that occurred in quite some time, and I think he was hanged in 1985, but I remember in that interview with him, he essentially said, "You had better kill me because I live in my head, and no amount of chemical castration or anything else that you do to me is going to stop me from reoffending again, because the fantasy lives large in my head, and it's never going away." And I know that for a fact. There's an axiom in child abuse that goes something like this. God, I hope I get it right. Those who abuse, I'm not even going to try to do it. I'd have to. My brain is not in the thinking mode. But basically, what the axiom was is someone who is abused will not necessarily abuse themselves, but everybody who did abuse was abused. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing with the chemical castration thing is, from the statistics that I've seen, that's actually pushing a lot of these pedophiles from just sexually abusing these children into then murdering them because, well, now they're not getting the payoff out of it because, well, they can't perform. It leads to frustration. That frustration leads to anger. That anger leads to violence. My God, I sound like a Jedi. But it's, that's the progression that I've seen going on with these castration drugs.
I think we're going to make some amazing discoveries in 2022, and I think it's going to lead on over into 2023. I think the potential exists for us to make and find out that there are some big names that stand to be exposed, not just in the celebrity area, but in the political arena and also in the large buckage billionaire arena. And I think a lot of what you're seeing right now is an ongoing wag the dog attempt to make sure that you don't look over here. Look, shiny. Look over there. At the same time that all the rest of this stuff is going on as well. I think there are going to be some large discoveries made in the next year and ongoing over into 2023. Jack, you had something to say?
Yeah, I think that's part of a two-prong attack. You've got the what's going on now where people we didn't know like Harvey Weinstein and so on. Harvey Weinstein was and his casting couch was one of the worst kept secrets in Hollywood, and the casting couch in Hollywood has been around since film was motion pictures was created. It's no secret. But now we're seeing we're having this as a two-prong attack. We're getting porn being taught in school. They're attempting to try and teach pornography and all of this freaky sex stuff in as young as middle schoolers. I covered a story probably 10 years ago where they wanted to teach kindergartners the correct way to put on a condom. That was 10, 15 years ago. And, but so you've got that as one prong of the attack, and the other prong is this massive drive now to legalize pedophilia. Because I think a lot of these people are realizing if we don't get this legalized soon, this whole house of cards that we've built around us is going to come crashing down, and we are going to get exposed and we will lose everything. We need to get it legalized so when our names come out, we don't lose the farm.
But it's not just for sex, it's for everything. COVID has been a wonderful covered-up job, a wonderful opportunity for leftists to lean further left. But the emphasis of the show is the fact that, yes, we know this is where it's going. We know this is where they're going. But I want to continue with the positive aspect of it. There's a Harvard study that just came out that exploded the myth about vaccines stopping the spread of Wuhan 19. This is by a guy named Kyle Becker. It says, or he says, in fact, the trend line suggests a marginally positive association that such countries with higher percentage of population fully vaccinated have a higher COVID-19 case rate per 1 million people. This was a Harvard-led study of 68 nations and 2,947 counties in the United States, published in the European Journal of Epidemiology. And it's shattering that argument that the mRNA therapeutic drugs being marketed as vaccines do anything significantly to stop the spread of COVID-19. But you're not supposed to hear of that. You're not supposed to know about that. And that's why this is positive. Also, this from a Canadian doctor who is speaking out. This is very positive as well. These things are becoming exposed.
Here's the Liberty Coalition of Canada that just came out.
Research now shows that the PCR test is practically worthless. Only 3% of patients with a positive test actually have the COVID virus. People have died, yes, that's true, But using case numbers gives a false picture of what is really going on.
Bingo.
Here's a graph showing the COVID cases reported each week in Canada. Even I get frightened looking at this graph. But now let's put the weekly deaths on the same chart. Where are all the deaths that we would expect to follow the cases curve? Something is really fishy here. Let's look at yearly deaths in Canada from 2001. It's pretty hard to show that we've even had a pandemic. The slight increase in 2020 was probably due to an aging population. But aren't hospital intensive care units overloaded with COVID patients? If we look at the Ontario intensive care unit data, there are fewer patients in the ICU in 2020 than in each of the previous 3 years. The CDC's own data compares COVID to seasonal flu. In children, COVID illness is so mild, their death rate is statistically 0. For people under 50, the infection survival rate is greater than 99.98%. And for those over 70, it is 94.6%. And that is without any early treatment whatsoever, like vitamin D or vitamin C. So if you're young, you really don't have anything to worry about. If you're older, well, we're going to give you some really great ideas on how to protect your health that do not include getting a shot with the vaccine.
So back in April, we knew so little about COVID, and this led us to take a lot of extra precautions, including adopting the idea that healthy people can spread disease. This is known as asymptomatic spread, and that's a very scary thought. Now, however, over 10 million cases have been studied, and evidence is rapidly emerging both from Wuhan and the University of Florida, showing that asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic spread are negligible to non-existent. This is a game changer. This means that we can take our lives back and go back to the time-tested advice I've always given my patients when they have a virus. If you're sick, stay home.
Stop right there. If you're sick, stay home. Don't stop living your life. More exposures of truth about what's really going on with Wuhan 19. This article also just came out in the Daily Mail of the UK. Frequently, I have to go to England for my news because it's not covered in the United States by the American media maggots. There's another story that I'm going to go to I'm going to ask Jack about. But on December 4th, just a couple of days ago, in the Daily Mail, I guess you guys didn't see it here or hear about it here. I didn't hear about it. The WHO, the World Health Organization, came out and said, no one has yet died from the Omicron variant, despite the new COVID strain being spotted in 40-plus countries. We got them in the U.S. Australia has seen Omicron. Those are the latest countries to confirm local transmission of that strain. India confirmed that it's got it too. The World Health Organization warned it could take weeks to determine how infectious the variant is. But even though they've known about it for quite some time, it hasn't killed anybody. And yet, with all of that, and this is where I want you, Jack, to weigh in, if you could, please. I'm looking at another Daily Mail article. Let's see, when is this? This came out in the late November. The headline says, thousands of Australians with unpaid fines for breaking COVID rules have their homes seized, bank accounts raided, and licenses canceled as the government chases up to $10 million in unpaid COVID-19 fines. Jack Alexander, this is where you weigh in. You're in Australia right now.
I don't know if that's not happening in Victoria. I think that's happening in New South Wales and the Northern Territory.
Okay. It says Queensland.
Okay, Queensland. Yeah, that sounds like something that Anastasia Palaszczuk would pull. In Victoria, they've made it clear you don't pay the fines for not getting vaccinated. You're going to jail. And on entry into jail, you will be held down by force if necessary and vaccinated, because they passed a law that if you are a guest of the government in any way, shape or form, mandatory vaccination. So, they're stretching it, but Omicron might actually be some good news, at least in the state of Victoria, where we've had the worst lockdowns on the planet. Just as Omicron started to raise its head here, the Premier, which is the equivalent of the Governor, was making all sorts of noises about shutting the state down again because we need to find out, we need to stop the spread of Omicron, and they were doing everything they could to mark government in confidence, anything that would upset the narrative that they were giving the media. Thankfully, the foreign media had, when they opened up the borders, they'd flooded much of Australia's governmental newsrooms with foreign correspondents. And it made it harder for the state governments to turn around and use this, because when Omicron started here, in the state of Victoria, they were debating new legislation to permanently give the state government the emergency powers and law enforcement, the emergency powers that they'd had right from the start of COVID. These powers that they've abused, arresting journalists, beating up civilians, shutting down businesses and what have you. And thankfully, because of the pressure of the foreign media who've now been able to get back into Australia, questions are being asked like, hang on, how can you justify shutting down the state when the doctor that was the first to come public with this is said that, A, it is milder than even the Delta strain, and you can't go around blaming the unvaccinated because almost everyone that has been infected with Omicron was fully vaccinated.
Yep.
The only case that I could find of someone who was unvaccinated getting Omicron was that they were children of someone who was vaccinated that got Omicron. And that was the only case of it. And it really did derail Premier Daniel Andrews' attempt to shut down the state and reinstitute all sorts of restrictions and screw over everyone's Christmas again.
It makes little, if any, sense. Can you, Jack Alexander, tell us now? Some people, maybe a lot of people, are not familiar with the geography of Australia. You're in Victoria, which is in southern Australia, which has had southeastern Australia, which has had, for whatever combination of reasons, and you told us why, the greatest number of deaths in Australia. Now, updated as of December 9th, on the East Coast, it's the 10th, and it's also, of course, the 10th where you are right now in Australia. That entire huge continent has had a total of 2,000 deaths. I'm sorry, 2,072 deaths. That's a mere fraction of the deaths that have occurred in most any other country, and yet you're operating under the most stringent, oppressive, aggressively oppressive laws that I'm aware of, with the sole exception possibly being China itself, because to my knowledge, you guys have not welded people into their apartments yet.
Welded them in, no, but having police stand guard out front of individual residences, yes. You stick your head out the window. I heard of one case where as soon as someone in one of these houses went to check their mailbox, law enforcement was out of the car and screaming, "Get back, get back in the house," like they were screaming at an armed suspect to drop the weapon and lay down. And that sort of insanity is still going on here. There's a video floating around at the moment of someone wanting to pay for his gas, but the gas station attendant's refusing to allow him to pay for his gas until he checks in. and calling the police and carrying on like all of this. And the guy said, look, shit, if I had some cash, I would just put it on the bench and go. And the attendant said, well, I'd just ring that up as a drive-away. And he's saying, hang on, you're going to ring me up as a drive-away even if I pay cash for it? Yeah, the sort of insanity that is going on here is crazy. And as I said, I'm thankful that Omicron has seriously sabotaged plans to re-lock down the country, because thankfully the foreign media is here to put questions on it. Those of us that are independent in the media here have been pretty much put out of action under the state stalking laws.
Stalking?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, just about all the independent journalists that were asking the hard questions had temporary violence restraining orders taken out against them under the stalking laws to stop them from turning up at press conferences and asking the difficult questions. You know, you do this with a foreign journalist, and there's a lot more scrutiny put on it. You know, how do you justify doing this? And the media networks here, including the more conservative ones like Sky News, have done a great disservice by not covering this as much as they should have. Now it's up to the people, and thankfully, out front of the Capitol building in the state Capitol building in Melbourne, every Saturday, citizens are getting up in front of there and demanding that Daniel Andrews step down, and demanding the arrest of on treason charges for a lot of government officials. Finally, now some medical experts have thought, well, screw it. If I get deregistered and banned from practicing medicine, so be it. But even they're now coming out and actually citing official government numbers from a few years ago. During 2020, the estimated number of people that would die from influenza-related complications. We're not talking COVID, we're talking influenza. In the state of Victoria alone was estimated to be between 43 and 4,500 people in the state of Victoria alone.
Okay, well, that's
stretch that out. New South Wales has a similar population. Queensland a little bit less than that. So we're looking at on a state level of maybe 10,000 people estimated would have died of influenza-related complications for 2020. When the health ministers are asked about this, they proudly put forward this idea that because of COVID, influenza no longer exists in Australia.
Okay, number one, any right, proper thinking person would say that again is just sheer insanity, which leads me to this question, and I'm going to have to move on from this, or I'm not going to be able to cover a fraction of the stuff that I'd like to talk about tonight. But is the issue, Jack Alexander, in Australia, that the people are believing all this wild insanity about COVID? They're treating Wuhan 19 as if it was Ebola or Marburg. So are they buying this? Is it because, well, let me ask you this. Is it occurring this way in Australia because they truly believe in the potential terrible deaths resulting from this? Or is it a move, as I have been saying for quite some time, for power, control, and money?
As far as the government's concerned, it's power, control, and money. The Victorian state government has made more money out of fines. When the average fine for an individual for a first COVID violation is $5,200, for a business it was $10,000. Now they've pushed it up that if you are working and you're not vaccinated, as an individual, it's a $21,000 fine, and your employer gets hit with a $110,000 fine per person.
God.
The government during the government under the COVID restrictions in the state of Victoria made nearly 300% more money into the coffers out of COVID violation citations than any other form of combined income for the state government over the last 2 years. There is absolutely no incentive for the government to give up this cash cow called COVID-19. People, on the other hand, when it started, they believed the media reports that COVID was the next Ebola. And then as time and the restrictions came in, the realities of it all came to light. And more people realized the government had lied through their ass, and people that normally would not protest are out in the streets. We've got small business owners that have been hit the hardest. And in Victoria, there was more protections. If you had a union job, if you had to be part of a union to do your job, you managed to keep working throughout the entire lockdown.
Imagine that.
If you did the same job but you were non-unionized, you were seen as unessential, and you had to shut your business down. And that's the sort of lunacy that has gone on with this. The political party that is in charge is heavily based in socialism and protecting labor unions. If you want to be a Labor Party politician, you do your apprenticeship as a union agitator before you move into city council or state-based politics.
Okay.
My local federal equivalent of a congressman was the police union rep when before he quit the force and went into poli. He quit the force, became the police union rep, then went into politics.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop this right here because I'm going to have to take a break. When I come back, I want to have some more happy, positive things to talk about. That was Jack Alexander. Lonnie Poindexter is also here tonight. I'm BZ. You're in the Saloon. And we'll be back with more buttery political goodness right after this. So don't go anywhere.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett, co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Hi, this is Eric Thompson. Please check out my new Week in Review show, For Liberty's Sake, Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Check out forlibertysake.com.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'm BZ. This is the last 27 minutes of the show. So welcome back. You're in the Saloon. My guests tonight are the fabulous Lonnie Poindexter and Jack Alexander from Australia. This is my positive show because there are a ton of great things that are occurring right now that I'm going to go over with in just a moment, due to the fact that people are actually resisting leftist edicts and finally pushing back against all of these stupid things that are occurring right now. One of the things is, this just came out. A Cleveland clinic suspends the vaccine mandate after the staff protests, citing the federal injunction. The Cleveland clinic is pausing the implementation of our COVID-19 vaccine policy. The process for vaccine exemptions and accommodations is not moving forward at this time. The reason that's occurring is because people are pushing back. Here's another story from Kyle Becker. This unlawful mandate is now blocked in all 50 states. Biden's vaccine mandate suffers another blow in a ruling for Montana. The state of Montana delivered another blow to Biden's now hobbled federal vaccine mandate. The news was announced by Senator Steve Daines. It's big news for Montana. Daines wrote on Twitter, Biden's overreaching vaccine mandate threatens Montana hospitals, healthcare workers, and Montanans seeking access to essential care. That's good news. That's happy news. Also this, the Biden administration may have just blinked. It says it's going to restart the Trump era remain in Mexico policy. That's a good thing. This, however, these next two stories are what I'd like to have Lonnie weigh in specifically, and then Jack as well, because these are grim for Democrats, very grim. This is from the Boston Herald. The headline in this says, Biden re-election poll shows a dismal 22% support for Biden's re-election. Today, well, actually, it was Sunday, December 7th. Kamala Harris was even worse at 12%. The numbers are absolutely, they're cringeworthy. 22% Biden, 12% Harris. When people said, who would you vote for in the 2024 election? You know, even if you doubt this poll, those numbers are execrable. Lonnie Poindexter, this poll, 22% Biden, 12% Harris, do you think it's accurate, and what does it portend for the Democrat Party, sir?
You know, I'm not a big fan of polls in general because of what I saw them do during President Bush's term in the political spectrum. But I do think they can be good indicators. There's something taking place. There's and this came a couple days ago. I think it was on Fox. But to give an indication of things shifting, and I think you and Jack both mentioned rats leaving the ship. The public affairs officer for the mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, who is a flaming lefty, her political affairs officer has switched parties.
What?
Yes. He's his name is, I jotted his name down here. He's Hispanic. He's a black Hispanic. And he has shifted parties. That's huge.
That's huge.
Washington, D.C. leans so far left that I call it San Francisco East. And so for him to switch parties, of which I made a post say I wonder how long he's going to keep his job, but it shows that there is something taking place. And so your topic about good news is very apropos, I think, because I saw that and I was like, you got to be kidding me. For this individual to say he's had enough and looking to move on to greener pasture, I won't say he's necessarily been red-pilled, but something is taking place, and that he can do something like this, and in that particular party, in that apparatus, because they're no different than Mayor Daley in Chicago back in the day, and then that evil regime that exists in San Francisco where Pelosi and her nephew Gavin Newsom comes from.
Jack Alexander, any thoughts on that?
You actually called me right looking at another story. There is just so much that's going to change in the upcoming year. It's going to be a wild roller coaster ride, I think.
Let me go, since we went to that, let me go through to this, because this dovetails on it. And again, to me, this spells, I really won't use the word doom, but not far. You can see doom from there. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel is, in fact, an electromotive diesel SD70 Mac running towards you at about 70 miles an hour with a 10,000-ton train. The Hill came out with an article yesterday, as a matter of fact. And just when Democrats think that they've done it all and they've locked and cinched things up, I would submit, again, the positive show, you know what? There are now indicators suggesting that what they're doing is creating their own demise. BZ, what do you mean? From The Hill, here's the headline. Yesterday, Rafael Bernal. Hispanic voters evenly split between Democrats and the GOP, says a Wall Street Journal poll. What? This is what he wrote. Support from Hispanic voters is evenly split between Democrats and Republicans, according to a new Wall Street Journal poll. And isn't it, and correct me, Lonnie, and correct me, Jack, aren't the Democrats opening the southern border because they are assured that all of these illegals are going to come in and they're going to be the next generation of Democrat leftist voters? But what if they're not, Lonnie?
That's a great point, my brother. I've been saying that, born and raised Californian, and the deep history that the Hispanic or Latino community has, going back to before the founding of this state and before the founding of this nation. And they are making the same assumption about that community as they've made about black Americans. And now black Americans, lock, stock, and barrel, have been leaning left, but they didn't always lean left. The assumption here is that the Latino community will lean left as well because they'll give them a bunch of free stuff. I think they're going to be sadly mistaken, because when you're coming from foreign nations where there were no safety nets, where if you didn't work and you didn't eat, the hardest working people I've ever seen or experienced were the Latino community. I worked with my dad's consulting firm for a number of years before moving to Washington, and we functioned in doing capital building program management for K-12 school systems. So when they would build new schools, new whatever within districts, they would hire us to help manage the process. What I saw on those construction sites, so in one particular district in Central California, any given day we had 300 and some odd people on that site working. The lion's share of them were Latino. You could not outwork one of those Latino workers. Whether they could put three English words together or not, they were hardworking. They were always banging on the construction office door looking for work. They just out-hustled everybody, and any general contractor worth the salt always had on his staff a number of Latino workers. They are independent thinkers. They are typically independent businessmen because if they don't have papers, they can't go out and get the government jobs and all the other things unless they have, documentation. But they will out-hustle. And so anybody can think independently like that is going to be thinking about the bottom line. How do I get paid? How do I keep getting paid? And how do I keep people out of my pocket who would take the money I'm getting paid? I think that's going to be the determining factor. And I think that we're going to have, like I said, or the left's going to have a big surprise come election time. I think starting in 2022 and going to 2024.
That's the deal. I think it's going to start in 2022. I completely concur with you on that. And it won't stop. Everybody knows that a lot of things are cyclical in life, including elections. Things move left, things move right. But I think the left has done itself a massive disservice, and the Democrats have done themselves a terrible disservice by hooking their star onto assholes and assholettes like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and her like, all the ilk of the squad and members that are similar to them in their way of thinking. Even when this story was covered, and it wasn't predominantly covered by leftists and the leftist American media maggots, there's one thing that they did not tell you, and that's this in the story, buried deep. You got to go down deep to find this. According to the Wall Street Journal, 44% of Hispanics would vote for President Biden if the 2024 presidential election were held today. And 43%, okay, so 44% of Hispanics would vote for Biden. 43% would vote for former President Trump. Not an unknown GOPer, but it's split between Biden and their worst enemy, Trump.
Yep.
Democrats hate looking at learning from history, I think. Standing on the outside of this goldfish bowl, looking in for so many years, out of all of those illegals that were given amnesty and papers under the Reagan administration, one of the biggest screw-ups of Reagan's time as president, I've always said.
Absolutely.
But out of those illegals that were given a pathway to citizenship and so on, statistically now from things that I've seen written in Forbes and in other media and so on, almost all of those people now vote conservative because they've seen how the policies, that they profited from also that are now damaging their chances of prosperity. And Democrats continue to keep pushing this agenda. They might get a short-term win out of it because they're allowing people who are not constitutionally eligible to vote. Why? Because, they need illegals to do the jobs that Americans won't do, like vote Democrat. But in almost every sector of immigration, once, amongst legal immigrants and naturalized American citizens, the vast majority of them vote conservative. And it's just the socialist college kids and the illegals that the Democrat Party keeps pandering to, and why they've needed to cheat and corrupt the system as heavily as they did in the last election to maintain that power. And while it was a shame that Donald Trump didn't get reelected, the good side of it is that now almost every state, the people are now turning around to their election officials and saying, the system is broken, and it needs to be fixed so that what happened in the last election never happens again.
And if there's one thing that you have to admit, it's that everything else aside, one of the greatest achievements of the Trump presidency was to reveal in its most naked form the true nature of the deep state. those persons who are in various administrations who were never elected, their strength, their ability to mold and completely disregard what the electorate and what the American citizens want, and to understand the depth and breadth of corruption that exists in D.C. and the alphabet agencies themselves, who I submit predominantly are not necessarily working for the American people much anymore. So, Lonnie, are we in 2022? Are we going to be able to rely, do you think, on proper election days? Will the votes count?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. Is we do see a momentum shift, but there is that thing that can we keep the integrity of the voting system? There are those of us, and I'm sure you two gentlemen are in that number, that something didn't smell right in Denmark with the presidential election. More recently with the recall election that took place here in California as well. So that's my biggest concern. And from the security experts I've been speaking with, one in particular who I won't name, you had him on your show.
Right.
And if we could ever get him to go public with what he knows, and then it'll blow people's hair back. But they most certainly can attribute that the books were cooked. So if we can maintain integrity with the elections, I think we'll see what we're talking about, because there is a momentum shift. I mean, my phone rings off the hook with people across the country who are saying, Lonnie, guess what? Between you and I and the fence post, but on such and such a date, I'm announcing I'm running for office. And this is all across the country. And I'm excited to see that. And because it tells me that folks, when they've had enough, they've had enough. In this nation, you can do something about the state of affairs that your nation is in, because you can throw the bombs out. But you have to participate. You have to step up. And when you do, with God's help, we will prevail. So I'm excited. I love the topic of the show today. I think there is good news, provided we can maintain the integrity of the elections. And I'm not certain how we can do that, except we have more whistleblowers come forward.
I think it's possible, but I think it would explain very much, at least in California, I always spell it with a K, because that's all I can address at this point, right? Because I'm still here. I'm not in my free state yet. I mean, I have a house there. Most of my furniture is there, but I'm physically not yet there because we've got another house to sell. That having been said, we need to realize that the rhinos in the Republican Party can be every bit as obstructionist, if not more, than Democrats, because they're undermining from inside. This might be the last topic for the show tonight, but I definitely want your opinions, Lonnie and Jack, on this, because Neil Cavuto had on his show today a man who made a statement that shocked me, but I thought, you know what? You want to eliminate? I guess, dude, you're going for a major population removal on the planet. This is Roger Wicker, a Republican, who's on the Senate Armed Services Committee, floats the idea of, okay, I'm not even going to talk about it. Here's Neil Cavuto, and here's Senator Roger Wicker, a Republican. This is a Republican saying this. Listen.
Well, military action could mean that we stand off with our ships in the Black Sea and we rain destruction on Russian military capability. It could mean that. It could mean that we participate, and I would not rule that out. I would not rule out American troops on the ground. We don't rule out first use nuclear action.
First use nuclear action. the policy of the United States involving our nuclear triad has been historically, we will not be first-use actors. And we've got an individual talking about Russia and Ukraine saying that we should consider boots on the ground in Ukraine. And if we need to use nukes, there really shouldn't be anything stopping us from using them first in a proactive fashion. And I know this is a family show, it's late at night, but what the fuck? Lonnie?
Wow.
Jack?
I had not heard that. Thanks for breaking that up. I guess, are we at that point? You know, this has me harken back to, those smarter than me that say that this is all part of the Great Reset, right? So is that what he's speaking to in code?
I don't know. But now with all the stupid things that have occurred over the past 2-3 years or since 2016, you can't help but wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how Jack sees this, his perspective.
Who says this?
Wow.
The Hawks today are the Democrats. Listen to their verbiage. Then you've got this asshole coming out today on Neil Cavuto and saying, we go nuclear with Russia over Ukraine?
Yeah.
What?
Wow.
As that guy, was he a congressman or a senator?
He's a senator.
He served in the military.
He's a senator on the Armed Services Committee. You would think he has access to intel, etc. Is he influenced by the intel, or is he just making mouth music because he's sending a message to Putin in Moscow by rattling his sword here?
The one thing I've learned, and I don't know if Lonnie served in the military, and I know you were law enforcement, but as a combat veteran, the last thing you ever that anyone wants to do is to commit troops to an active conflict, and those people that actively advocate for first strike capability, first strike, in the majority of cases have, in my experience, have never served in the military. I honestly think that this senator is blowing wind up the arse of the world because he knows that Biden will never issue the orders and authorize the release of nuclear weapons. So I think he's just doing all smoke and mirrors. It's his 5 minutes to whore himself in front of a TV camera. I think the fastest way to resolve the Ukraine issue is to honor their request and make them a full member of NATO. That means it's not just the United States that's in this game. That gives them the full defensive capabilities of the NATO alliance treaty. And that is while it's just the United States, and given, Biden's dementia, and we're not really sure who actually has the codes at the moment, because Nancy Pelosi wanted to have a copy of the codes too, because Joe Biden wasn't all there. So who's going to authorize the release of these weapons? Democrats have always been good at saying, oh, here's the line in the sand. You cross that and there'll be hell to pay. Oh, I didn't mean that line. I meant this new line. And they keep walking back this line.
Like Obama.
Yeah, we saw this. Yeah, like Obama. Clinton did it to some extent, not as badly. And who's ever the puppet master with his hands up Biden's prostate will probably do the same thing. We statistically, from what I've seen, Russia does its most provocation and has its most hostile actions against the United States under Democrat presidents.
Yeah,
because even under George W. Bush, who was a clown at the best of times, our enemies knew that George W. Bush was not afraid to authorize the use of cruise missiles and so on, and to take retribution. Obama and the modern Democrats won't do this, and heaven forbids that the likes of Iran or any of these Middle Eastern countries act up. Do you really think that the likes of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar would vote in favor of retribution of a Middle Eastern enemy under this administration? No. So the fastest way I think, to bring the Ukraine issue to an end, make the Ukraine a full NATO partner, allowing them the full protection of the NATO alliance defense treaty, which means all the other countries in NATO will have to step up and do that bit. Germany is the one that's souring the milk on this at the moment, because they get 90% of their oil now out of Russia, and that's their that's their stupid call. And frankly, if they're going to cavort with the enemy, then they need to feel the ramifications of their bad decision.
And didn't Trump say in a meeting of the G10 or the G8, didn't he tell Russia, to Merkel, to her face, that you're making a huge mistake going with Russia when we can supply you with oil, because something like this could occur, and it's apparently occurring right now? It would seem that most everything that Trump has said has turned out to be absolutely prescient. Now, in the meantime, I started looking up information on this guy, Roger Wicker. He's the senior U.S. Senator from Mississippi since 2007. He was an officer in the United States Air Force from 1976 to 1980, and a member of the U.S. Reserves, Air Force Reserves, from 80 to 2003. So he has a background in the military. But why is he making...
Never seen
No, apparently never seen combat, because there's nothing in there about that. And I'm sure it would be, because Wikipedia is written by, those predominantly on the left.
What did he do in the Air Force?
I haven't, let me go down a little bit. Now, it talks about the elections, his tenure. He got his JD from University of Mississippi. He served as an officer in the Air Force 76 to 80, and it doesn't go into his career. He was reserve in 2003 as a lieutenant colonel.
Had that.
He was a JAG. This is what he did. He was a JAG.
There you go. There you go.
Yep.
That pretty much sums it up. I mean, the lawyers in the E-ring screwed us over in Vietnam. They screwed us over during the first Gulf War, and they continue to screw us over when it comes to military planning and standard operating procedures for combat troops. Those of us that are frontline combat troops, we're just numbers to them. They don't see us as people. So that's my take on it.
It's just sheer insanity. Why do we have a sitting senator from Mississippi, essentially, as far as I can tell, attempting to make policy in lieu of the President of the United States? We're hearing this from a senator on the Armed Services Committee, not from the President, not from the Veep, from this guy who is a Republican. I repeat, what the hell? And with that,
I mean, Beto O'Rourke tried to play on his military services as an intelligence analyst, and then we find out while he was deployed, he was the CO's personal driver. Now, as someone that has served in the military, that job is given to someone who is a total screw-up. It's a position where they can't get into trouble.
Or they're earmarked. They're earmarked for moving up, and they're trying to keep them out of trouble so that they can move up, and they're being groomed because they're someone's pet.
Yeah.
Well, I've run out of time. My show has to end.
It always comes too quickly.
I know. So, Jack, can you tell us where you can be found and where people can listen to your show?
Well, tomorrow night will be my last show of the year until the 10th of January. You'll find me on Facebook, Twitch, Parler, Pro America Only, Gab, MeWe, Twitter, LinkedIn, or you can check out jackalexanderexperiment.com. So yes, tomorrow night's my last regular show of the year, although I do have a show planned where I will have a gubernatorial candidate from, I think it's South Carolina, that we're going to hook up over the next couple of weeks and have a chat, and I'll be streaming that. But, I guess watch this space for more info on that. So follow me on all of that social media. If you want to see what the show's about, head over to rumble.com, search for the Jack Alexander Experiment, because that's where I have a Zucker-proof repository of videos from my show, or you can subscribe to the audio version everywhere good podcasts can be found.
Excellent. Lonnie Poindexter, can you tell us a little bit about you're a representative for EBLM?
Yes, I am, sir, and thank you so much again for allowing me to be on your show. Folks can learn more about EBLM and how we're confronting directly the false narrative of Black Lives Matter and CRT by going to let me give you the website, www.everyblm.com. That's www.everyblm.com. Tons of information there. Talks about our whole value proposition. We're pretty hot right now on the different shows. We've been on Fox and all the other networks as well. You can also learn more about what I'm doing by following my social media on Facebook and, the variety of platforms to see me there. It's lionchasersnetwork.com. If you go there, that'll take you, or lionchasersnetwork.org. That'll take you to my fan page and have all information. I like stirring the pot just like you gentlemen do. I want to encourage people to step up and speak up. I mean, we win this thing if we show up. If we show up, we will prevail.
Absolutely. Though we know, I sense the winds, the political prairie winds are shifting. And I was attempting to make the point for tonight that there's a lot of positive stuff out there. If you just look for it, it really is being broadcast in the clear. No one is picking it up. No one on the left will. They don't have it within themselves to tell the truth to anybody, especially with regard to the New York Times, who said that the Fox Christmas tree caught fire and conveniently left out the fact that it was torched by a criminal arsonist who was out on bail. Actually, didn't have to make bail because, after all, it's New York City. But though the winds are changing, we cannot become complacent. And we can't assume that somebody else is going to go ahead and do it. We can't assume that somebody else is going to go ahead and get out and vote on those necessary voting days, that, I can stand back because it's changing and I sense it is. So, I don't really have to do all that much. Yes, you do. Now more than ever. Oh, and by the way, Lonnie and I are going to have dinner on Saturday night, and we'll probably talk a lot of politics and that kind of stuff. So, Lonnie, looking forward to seeing you at dinner on Saturday night, by the way.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. God bless you as well, Jack.
So, Lonnie, thank you
Thanks
kindly,
a lot,
sir. Jack, thank you ever so kindly. I greatly appreciate both of you being here. And, of course, with that...
Monsieur has been locked!
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, until I get kicked off Twitter, because I have recently in the past month. And my promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in about 10 minutes, because I'm about 15 feet from the refrigerator, as opposed to 30 minutes away from the original SHR Media studio that was in downtown Sacramento. Thanks tonight to Lonnie Poindexter. Thanks tonight to Jack Alexander. Thanks to you so kindly for listening live. Thanks to everybody for being involved in the chat room. And thanks to everybody who listens in podcast. If it's too damned late for you to listen live, I get that, okay? Everybody have a great weekend. God bless, take care, and be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night and good luck.